AITA for banning my brother from my wedding after he forced a kiss on my pregnant wife at our engagement party. I'm 25M and my wife, Mara, 24F, is the kind of person who makes chaos go quiet. We've been together 4 years, married civilly last year for paperwork reasons, and planned a proper ceremony for family and friends, 2 days away when all this blew up. She's 18 weeks pregnant, a detail that matters because it colors how she moves through the world right now. Tired feet, cautious steps, and a hand always on her stomach like she's shielding a tiny candle against the wind. My older brother Dane, 34M, has a wife, Leah, and 2 kids. Growing up, Dane was the golden child. He was a rainbow baby after my parents lost a pregnancy, and on top of that he had a minor congenital issue that required attention early on. My parents wrapped him in bubble wrap and handed him the world. When I was born, the bubble wrap started to peel off, and Dane never forgave me for that. He's always carried this weird, simmering entitlement. Like rules are suggestions, and other people's boundaries are walls for him to hop. Still, we try to be a family. We invited them to everything. We gave him responsibilities. I kept telling myself I was overreading the smirks, the just jokes, the way he'd test lines to see what he could get away with. Then our engagement party happened. The party was at this cozy event space with string lights and 2 sweet punch. A friend DJ'd, my aunt ran the photo booth like a drill sergeant, and the cake table was a whole production. 3 tiers, buttercream, tiny sugar flowers. Mara hovered near it because her back hurt, and standing there meant she didn't have to make a lap across the room every time someone wanted to hug her belly and say you're glowing. I was over at the present table figuring out where to stash envelopes when I heard my brother's voice call, "Where's Louie?" "That's me." I looked up. He was at the cake table with Mara. She pointed in my direction, and I started walking over. By the time I got there, Dane had stepped close, too close, and hooked an arm around Mara's waist. I saw her lean back, eyes wide. I opened my mouth to say something, and in that split second he yanked her in and pressed his mouth to hers. It wasn't a peck. It was a gross, full-on press that made my stomach flip. Mara shoved at his chest with both hands. I grabbed Dane by the shoulder and pulled him off her so hard his drink sloshed. "What is wrong with you?" I shouted. The music felt like it dropped out. Heads turned. Leah, his wife, was a few feet away with their kids and froze like someone had cut the power. Dane's face went tight, then smug. "Relax, man," he said, hands up like he was the victim. "She deserves to kiss someone before she gets tied down." Mara's voice shook. "I didn't want to kiss you. You forced it." "Dude," I said, "what the hell does that even mean?" He shrugged, like he was being funny. "Come on, it's a party. It's just a kiss." Leah's voice sliced through from behind him. "Just a kiss? This is the 3rd time this week, Dane." Everything stopped. "The 3rd time?" I said. People nearby were pretending not to listen and doing a terrible job of it. Leah's jaw was clenched. "He's been kissing women lately," she said, voice cracking, angry and humiliated at the same time. "Random, inappropriate, drunk, whatever. He thinks it's cute." Dane spun to her. "Leah, seriously? You're going to do this here?" Mara wiped her mouth with the back of her hand, put both palms on her belly like she was grounding herself. I stepped between them and Mara and said, "Get out." He laughed once. "You can't kick me out of your own party. Watch me," I said, and I waved over my cousin who's built like a linebacker. He and 2 friends escorted Dane out while he kept shouting, "It's not a big deal." And, "You're overreacting." It was a big deal. It was my wife. It was my kid inside her. And it was my brother, who did it. The rest of the party was a blur of apologies I didn't owe and comfort I tried to give. Mara kept insisting she was okay, just shaky, and the baby was fine. Leah came over with glassy eyes and said, "I'm so sorry. I don't know what's wrong with him." We sat her down and made sure her kids were distracted at the photo booth. By the time the last balloon sagged, I'd already decided Dane was not coming to our wedding. I don't know if anyone else grew up with a sibling who was allowed to be the main character even when they were pulling fire alarms for attention, but that's Dane. My parents always framed his bad behavior as he's just going through something, and he needs support. Meanwhile, if I spoke up, I was sensitive, dramatic, or disrespectful. But a line got crossed that night, and I felt the snap in my bones. It wasn't jealousy, it wasn't a prank, it wasn't alcohol. It was entitlement with a physical manifestation. He decided my wife's body was a prop in his ongoing theater of self. Also, there's the pregnancy. It changes stakes. Mara is already navigating a parade of unsolicited touches and comments. She has to ask strangers not to rub her belly like a Lucky Charm. She's tired. She's vulnerable. I will not tolerate someone, especially family, making her feel unsafe. So I texted Leah later. "I'm sorry for what you're dealing with. I can't have Dane at the wedding. For your sake and ours, please don't come." She replied almost immediately, "I understand completely. You're not wrong." That should have been the end of it. My phone lit up the next morning like a forest fire. "Dane, bro, you can't seriously be uninviting me. It was a joke. Me, you forced yourself on my wife. Dane, you're being ridiculous." I apologized. He had not. Then my parents got in on it. Mom called, voice already managerial. "Sweetie, it's family. You don't disinvite family 2 days before the wedding." You don't assault family at an engagement party, I said. It was a misunderstanding, she said. He's stressed. He's been under pressure at work. Dad chimed in later with the classic, forgiveness is a virtue. And then, you know how your brother is. Yes, I do. That's the problem. On the other side, my friends were unanimously team boundary. One texted, if he shows up, I'm your bouncer. My aunt sent a thumbs up and then another message. Proud of you for protecting your family. Even a couple of cousins who usually ride the fence messaged to say they were disgusted by what they saw. Leah's messages were the hardest to read. She thanked us for not making a scene with the kids. She said she was staying at her sister's for a few days. She told me not to let my parents guilt me into changing course. He needs consequences, she wrote. Maybe it's the only thing that will make him actually look at himself. Meanwhile, my parents ramped up, telling me Dane deserves to be there, that I was punishing the whole family, that the photos would be forever stained by this absence. I said the only stain would be letting him in the room. So I drew the line. I told the venue Dane's name and face. I told security not to admit him. I told my parents that if they brought him as a surprise, they'd be asked to leave too. They called me heartless, and I hung up. Now I'm sitting here 2 days before the ceremony, making place cards and contingency plans, wondering if I'm about to nuke the family group chat for the next decade. I want a peaceful wedding where my wife can breathe and nobody has to scan the room for a walking boundary violation. So, AITA for banning my brother from my wedding after he forced a kiss on my pregnant wife? Update. Okay, wedding happened yesterday, and here's the rundown. First, yes, I kept Dane uninvited, and yes, I informed the venue and our day of coordinator. We added a short note to the officiant's script asking guests to remain seated after the recessional so we could exit quickly if needed. Security was briefed, and my cousin, the linebacker, wore an earpiece and the most self-serious expression I've ever seen. Leah and the kids did not come. She sent a beautiful message the morning of, wishing us peace. She also told me she confronted Dane again and is staying with her sister indefinitely. She's looking into counseling, possibly separation. She gave me permission to share that because, in her words, people need to stop protecting him. My parents arrived tight-lipped and tried to negotiate a last minute, just for the ceremony compromise. I said no. My mom teared up and said, "You're choosing her over us." I said, "I am choosing the family I'm building over enabling the family I was born into." Then I hugged her, and we all took a deep breath and moved on. The ceremony itself was everything we hoped it would be. Mara walked down the aisle looking calm and strong. Our officiant kept it simple and warm. When we exchanged vows, I promised to be a safe place she could always return to. She promised to tell me when she needs help, even when it's hard. We both cried. Not a single person tried to make it about themselves. There was a scare at the reception when someone in a navy suit lingered by the entrance, and my stomach dropped, but it was just the photographer's assistant. Dane never showed. I later learned he texted my dad that he refused to be part of a circus, which made everyone laugh because, pot, meet kettle. After dinner, my dad asked to speak privately. He said, quietly, "I didn't handle this right. I wanted to keep the peace and forgot that protecting you and Mara is peace." He apologized to both of us. My mom joined and apologized too, promising to talk to a therapist about why she reflexively defends Dane. It wasn't a TV movie hug and resolution, but it felt like a door inching open. Leah texted me late last night that Dane finally admitted he has a problem, which for him is huge. He agreed to see a therapist his work provides. I told her we're rooting for her first and foremost. If she needs childcare or help moving, we're there. So, no, I don't regret the ban. Our wedding day felt safe and sacred because we enforced the boundary. The fallout isn't over. There will be family meetings and hard conversations. But for once, the cost of doing the right thing didn't feel higher than the cost of avoiding it. If you're in a similar situation, it is not cruel to protect your partner. It is love in motion.